Good morning, everyone. I'm Robin Goforth. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of BiologicsMD, and we are developing PTH-CBD, which is a new prescription medication for the treatment of osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis strikes 1 out of every 2 women and 1 out of every 4 men over the age of 50. In spite of current therapies, there are over 1.5 million osteoporosis-related fractures every year. And these fractures have devastating consequences. For a patient suffering from an osteoporosis-related hip fracture, 1 out of 5 is going to die within the year. Half of these patients cannot walk across a room unassisted even after 6 months. But osteoporosis does not have to be a life sentence. So current osteoporosis medications are divided into 2 primary classes. By far the most commonly prescribed are anti-resorptives. These include drugs like Boniva. Probably everybody in this room has seen Sally Fields talking about Boniva on TV. It also includes newer drugs like denosumab, that's Amgen's Prolia, that has a massive marketing campaign out right now. Now, even though these drugs are commonly prescribed, they have serious limitations. 1, they don't grow new bone. Anti-resorptives work by slowing down the rate at which you lose bone. In addition, there's a growing body of evidence that suggests the long-term use, especially of bisphosphonates, can lead to serious side effects. This includes osteonecrosis of the jaw, as well as an increased risk of fractures of your long bones, like your thigh. Now, the writing is very clear on the wall that the FDA is going to change their regulations towards bisphosphonates. The current thinking is they're going to limit how long you can use bisphosphonates. They're going to limit when you can start taking them, how severe your disease has to be before you're allowed, or recommended to take them, I should say. And also, they're going to start recommending drug holidays, a lifetime maximum for how long you can be on these drugs. Now, the second class of drugs are anabolics. Anabolics actively increase new bone growth. Now, right now in the United States, there's only one on the market. That's Eli Lilly's Forteo. Now, Forteo has been shown effective at growing new bone. However, it also has limitations. It requires that patients take a shot every day. Now, this limits patient compliance and also patient acceptance. In addition, it's expensive. It costs over $8,500 per year. Now, PTH-CBD is unique among all these medications. It's an anabolic therapy that is targeted directly to the bone. PTH-CBD is a unique molecular fusion of pieces of 2 FDA-approved therapeutics. CBD, collagen binding domain, is what targets the molecule to the bone. PTH actively increases new bone growth. Now, what this means is a semi-annual or even annual injection of PTH-CBD provides an extended period of new bone growth. Let's see if I can get my next slide to come up. I managed to do something clever with my PowerPoint here. Now, our preclinical data package is extensive. Now, these are tests done in mice and overectomized rat. Overectomized rat is the accepted model for post-mental osteoporosis. You remove the ovaries from the rat, you let them age, and basically you're causing menopause in a rat. We've used these animal models to look at efficacy. How well does PTH-CBD increase bone mineral density? When we compare head-to-head in these studies with Forteo, Forteo provides a 5% increase in bone mineral density. PTH-CBD, a 13%, indicating that we were 2.5 times more effective than the most effective drug on the market. Now, this is important because the literature indicates that for every 1% increase in bone mineral density, you have a 5% reduction in your risk of fractures. We've also used these animal tests to look at the safety. We're looking for side effects that are known for other osteoporosis medications. We're looking at the overall pathology of the animals and have seen no serious side effects in any of these experiments. We also have used these animals to look at the quality of bone, the microarchitecture of the bone formed by PTH-CBD, to ensure that the quality is excellent. So what you want to replicate is young, healthy bone, and that's what micro-CT can demonstrate. We're also interested in alternative uses for PTH-CBD outside of osteoporosis, and later I'll talk a little bit about alopecia. Together, our preclinical data suggests 3 primary advantages for PTH-CBD. It's 5 times more effective than the market-leading drug. 2.5 times more effective than the most effective drug available. In addition, because PTH-CBD is targeted directly to the bone, it spends less time in the bloodstream. We see no serious side effects, and that targeting to the bone, removal from the bloodstream, is part of that reason why. In addition, we need less frequent dosing. A semi-annual or annual injection of PTH-CBD is compared to daily shots for Forteo. Now, it's these advantages that are really going to let us introduce PTH-CBD into the osteoporosis market. That's a $3 billion market in the U.S. and a $10 billion global market. And as our population continues to age, these numbers will go up. If we look at the competitive landscape, it's really dominated by these anti-resorptives, in large part because generics are available and they're inexpensive. That said, Forteo, even though it costs $8,500 per year and requires the daily shots, has managed to capture 10% of the total market, simply because it's effective at growing new bone. We really think this means there's a market opportunity for a drug that is more effective, safer, and more acceptable to consumers in terms of the dosing regime. Now, to move PTH-CBD forward through the drug development process, I'd like to introduce you the management team we've assembled. Paul Malacher is our president. He has 15 years of management experience, including 10 years with startups. Importantly, he's also experienced with government contracts and with the Department of Defense and how it works. Dr. Rob Genscher is our Chief Medical Officer. He's a practicing clinician and researcher, as well as an active clinical trial director. He is a co-inventor of PTH-CBD and has been fully involved in this project since day one. Dr. Jim Shook is our Chief Development and Regulatory Officer. He has 35 years of experience in drug development. He's moved 25 different drugs through the FDA approval process, and this includes both small molecules and proteins, keeping in mind that proteins are important because PTH-CBD is a protein-based therapeutic. Dr. Misty Stevens, who's in the audience today, is our Chief Operating Officer. She has 6 years of experience in the development of biologic-based therapeutics. I would say she has a specialty in outsourcing of both manufacturing and contract, as well as the preparation of the FDA regulatory documents. So as I said, I'm Robin Goforth. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer. My background is in protein chemistry. And when you're developing a protein therapeutic, that's really, really key. I also have a track record of successful government grant funding. And I'm currently serving as the principal investigator on BiologicsMD $2.3 million Department of Defense contract. Michael Thomas is our Chief Marketing Officer. He has 12 years of experience in consumer products and the packaged goods industry. Now, together, our team has the necessary experience in outsourcing, manufacturing, FDA regulations, and clinical trials to really move PTH-CBD through the drug development process. And this is kind of where the current stages of development are. Now, PTH-CBD, as it exists today, is the result of early work by the inventors on screening and optimization. That led us to be able to test the molecule in animals to lead to those preclinical data that we looked at earlier, looking at safety and efficacy. We've also introduced PTH-CBD to the FDA, saying, here's what we have, and more importantly, here's what we're going to do next. And it's really important to get their feedback as early because you want to limit the number of unnecessary tests you conduct. You want it streamlined, cost-effective, in the shortest time as possible. The next steps, based on those discussions, are development of the manufacturing platform. We currently produce PTH-CBD at a lab scale. We have to scale it up so that it's cost-effective, and that it can be produced in a manner that is compatible with the regulations for producing a human medication. We also need to complete the FDA-regulated toxicology testing. With that information, you go back to the FDA, say, okay, we told you what we're going to do, here's what our results are, here's what we're going to do next. And those next steps are production of the batch for use in humans, and then start the clinical trials with the FDA permission. The phase 1 is a safety trial. Phase 2 and phase 3 look at efficacy. Once the FDA reviews all of that information, they can approve PTH-CBD for marketing to consumers. And I'd like to make 2 additional points on after completion of the phase 1 safety trial. And we think this is a valid strategy given the marketplace as it exists. Major pharmaceutical firms are facing 2 problems. They've cut down internal R&D, so their internal pipeline is short, and a lot of drugs are falling off patent. And when the drugs fall off patent, their profits go down. So in-licensing from medium and small businesses such as BiologicsMD is a stated strategy of all of the major pharmaceutical firms. Where we are right now is development of the manufacturing platform. Now, some of you saw us, we had an opportunity to present here last year, or may have seen us elsewhere, so I'd like to kind of give you an update of where we've gone in the last year. Our lab is up and running, so we are working in-house on the production of PTH CBD, as well as development of that scalable process for the manufacturing. In addition, we continue to expand our preclinical data package, as well as present this information to scientists across the world in publications and at meetings. Now, to do this all, we of course have to have money. As I mentioned earlier, we are working with a $2.3 million DoD contract that is finalized. That is paying in large part for the development of our manufacturing platform in a non-dilutive fashion, which we're really pleased with, actually. We've also entered with a confidentiality agreement with a major pharmaceutical firm. Now, this is key because our stated exit strategy is after completion of the phase 1 trial. Now, as part of our development plan, we are discussing with pharmaceutical firms, including this one, at all stages of development. We don't want to wait and say, okay, we're done, now look for somebody. We want to keep that process going continually. Moving forward, I want to switch gears just a little bit. So everything I've talked about up to this point with PTH CBD is in the treatment of osteoporosis. However, alopecia, which is hair loss, we have excellent preclinical data that PTH CBD is effective in reducing hair loss by inducing the ability of hair follicles to enter the growth phase. Now, why is this important? Well, one, it's another market. It's a $900 million U.S. market, which is smaller than osteoporosis. But anytime you can add an additional market, I think that's an advantage. It's a $2 billion global market. But in addition to being covered under our existing pending patent, it's a faster regulatory track. The phase 3 clinical trial for osteoporosis, your primary clinical outcome, is a reduction in the risk of fractures. That means you have to have a large number of patients and you have to track them over a long period of time. With alopecia, all of your patients have all your clinical trial patients have hair loss. You don't have to wait and say, okay, 1 out of 100 is going to break a leg, or 1 out of, whatever number it is. So you have to have a smaller number of patients. And it's faster. In 9 to 14 days, you can see an effect. So what this does is reduces the costs of getting your drug to market first for a different indication. Now, we've had feedback from groups that we are looking at as Series A investors that this is really attractive to them, and it's also been very attractive to the potential end licensees. Towards that, we are submitting a grant in December, an SBIR grant, specifically to look at PTH CBD in the treatment of alopecia. Now, this work will run in parallel with our work on developing it for the treatment of osteoporosis. So on the business development side, we are actively looking for an additional board member, specifically with someone with a lot of experience in major pharmaceutical firms and in licensing. We are also looking to complete our scientific advisory boards and continue to develop relationships with other major pharmaceutical firms. We have the one that we're working with under the confidentiality agreement, but we really want to look at multiple opportunities, such as Merck and Eli Lilly. As a company, we also continue to evaluate other biologic therapeutics as in-licensing opportunities. Now, to move forward, obviously, the funding strategy is critical. Currently, we have $3.1 million. That's $2.3 million in the non-dilutive DoD contract for the manufacturing platform, and an additional $800,000 in private investment. That's towards the toxicology testing. We are currently seeking $350,000 additional dollars to complete toxicology testing and close that seed round. Now, together, those funds would let us go to the pre-IND with all of the manufacturing and all of the toxicology data to really get as much impact from that pre-IND meeting as possible. Now, after that, the next steps are we would need a Series A of $3.2 million. That Series A round pays for the production of the batch of PTH CBD for use in humans, as well as the actual phase 1 clinical trial. Now, we expect that phase 1 clinical trial to be completed in 2015. The end of that year is really where we look to finish the sub-licensing agreement with a major pharmaceutical firm. Now, if we look at our exit strategy, this chart here depicts major pharmaceutical firms, smaller or medium companies that they have licensed from, different drugs at different stages, pre-phase 1 to phase 2 in this graph, for different amounts of money. And I'd like to focus on the top one. GSK entered into a licensing agreement with Unigene for a pre-phase 1 oral osteoporosis treatment. At a pre-phase 1, it was valued at $150 million in upfront payments and milestone payments, plus revenue sharing. And GSK is funding Unigene's development of this medication. So I think this gives an idea of the range of where we're looking for a drug that is more effective, safer, and more convenient for patients. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Robin?
From the chart, it looked like this is going to be more expensive than the other alternatives. And how much more expensive?
Okay, so ultimately pricing strategy will be determined by the large manufacturing firm that acquires us. Here's where I stand on that. There are generics that are as low as $4 a month. There's a once daily generic of Actonel. Forteo, on the other hand, is $8,500, and that's got a 10% market share even at that cost. The pricing for PTH CBD would be, in my estimation, somewhere on the high end of the anti-resorptives, which is around $4,000 per year, up to, but unlikely to be significantly more than Forteo. Now, that said, we have a cost advantage in the production because the dosing requirements, when you only have to give the drug so infrequently it's not excreted from the body rapidly, our production costs are lower. That means we have a higher profit margin. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Robin, if I understood correctly, the PTH CBD still will require an injection. And so in that context, it may still limit the numbers of women or men that are willing to actually even have, have this drug.
It is either 6 months or once annually sub-Q injection is what we are anticipating. Currently, Amgen's Prolia, denosumab is the name other people have used, is also a sub-Q injection. They're projecting $1.6 million in revenue in their first year. So yes, not everybody will want a shot. However, I think most people agree that a shot every 6 months is better than a shot every day.
Robin, can you design that phase 1 study so that you get actually some efficacy data out of it with the alopecia approach? And it seems to me that would be your best point of entry there, assuming that your levels for therapeutic use are comparable.
Right, that's a good point. And actually, what we're really planning for, and because this is what we've talked to the FDA about, is in the phase 1 clinical trial, actually getting early indication of evidence for the osteoporosis indication. And so the FDA has given when we talk to them, using women over the age of 65 with a T-score that indicates osteoporosis is an acceptable safety test group. And with that, at the safety doses, we do expect to be able to see an increase in bone mineral density. We could also use an alopecia group. Well, I can't say for sure. We would have to consult with the FDA to see if an alopecia group would be appropriate. Right, and so we've got 2 different drug delivery pathways here, so they're not identical.
Other questions?
All right, well, thank you,
Well, thank you very much, Robin.